everyone, welcome back to another Python episode. So last time we did a smiley face turtle project. So here are the topics for today. So today we're going to learn about variables finally and an epic Python quiz at the end of this video. Alright, so the first slide is what are variables. So a variable is a memory location to store some values. So here's an example variable. So number underscore of bananas is equal to 2. So this basically just means that there are 2 bananas. So of course variables have a purpose. So when you make variables, they're usually made to keep count of something. And there are also many different ways you can use variables. So let me go over the syntax of a variable. So the variable's name can be your choice. So it doesn't have to be number of bananas. I'm just using it as an example. But you have to stick to some rules, which I will later show you. And another thing is that you have to be careful about the assignment operator, because for a variable it's a single equal sign, but if we're comparing two things, you use double equal signs. So you have to be careful about this and remember to put a single equal sign when assigning a variable. And the last thing about the variable is that the value can be anything, such as a string, a float, or a boolean, or even more. So in this case, it's an integer, but it can be anything you want it to be. So now let's learn about how to print our variables. So I'm just using these variables as an example, but you can use different variables and try this out. So its name is equal to Arav. And actually that's my name. And then if we type name over here, it will just print the name. So it will print Arav. And if you're wondering why we're not doing print name, is that you don't have to do print name in the shell. But in the editor, you have to write print before the variable's name. And also we can check the type of a variable. So just type the variable name inside the brackets. Alright, so we can try this out in the idle shell. So what I'm going to do is type name is equal to, and then I'm going to do some quotes because it's a string. And then we can press enter. So if we type name and then we press enter, you'll see it's going to say Arav. And what if we try print name in the editor? So let's just try that out. And also, when printing a variable, you don't need to do quotes around it, as it is not a string. So if we try print name in the shell, it's just going to say the same thing, except there's no quotes. So it still works in the shell. As a shortcut, you can just type the variable's name. And we can also check it by type. So if we type type, and then we do our brackets, and then we can type the variable's name inside. So you see, it's going to be class string because our variable is a string. But what if we try it with a number? So let's use a number in order to do that. So I can do age is equal to 11, and that's my actual age. And then we do type, open our brackets, and then type age. So let's see what is the output. So age is an integer because the value is a number, which is 11. So I'm going to go over more purposes of a variable. So variables can be used for calculating a value and then storing the result to use it later. Your variable's name can stay the same, but you can change the value later. So let's see an example for them. So this slide shows you how to calculate a value and then storing the result to use it later. So I'm just going to go over this. So the variable is called side of a square is equal to 10, and this is my variable. Using my previous variable, I just used it to be assigned to a new variable. So I'm using this in order to make the area of a square. So that is equal to side of a square to the power of 2. And here's a fun fact in case you didn't already know that. So to the power of 2 means squared, and that means you have to do 10 times 10. So it's just a cool maths fact in case you didn't know that already. And then we can print my new variable and see what the answer is. So let's try that in the shell and see what happens. So we can make a variable called side of a square. So I'm using underscores just to separate the different words in one variable. So if you want, you can use my way, and that's equal to 10. And then we can make a new variable called area of a square, and that is equal to side of a square to the power of 2. And then we can print the area of a square. So we just put our variable inside it. Oops, I accidentally typed a capital letter. So usually I don't really use capital letters in variables, but if you want, you can. So if I press enter, you'll see 100 because the side of a square is equal to 10 and the area of a square is equal to the side of a square to the power of 2. So 10 times 10 is 100. And also, you see, if we type these first two variables, you won't really see an output because variables are not supposed to give an output yet, because we are making a variable and we are not telling Python to actually print that variable out or do something with that variable right then. But when we do print area of a square, we're telling Python to print that value out. So this is why we see an output for this instruction and not the other two. So this slide shows you how your variable's name can stay the same, but you can change the value later. So these are the two variables you'll use. So the value of pi is actually equal to 22 divided by 7, which is actually just an improper fraction, and that's equal to 3.14, and then many other decimals. So r, which stands for radius, is equal to 10. So I'm making a new variable called area of a circle, and you see we're using these two variables in order to make another variable. So we're doing pi times radius, which stands for pi times radius squared. So that's just the official way to calculate the area of a circle. This is the official value for pi as an improper fraction, but radius is just 10 and I'm just using it as an example number, so it's not the official value. So here you see I'm printing my variable out. So I'm reassigning my r variable. So this time I did r is equal to r plus 1. So it's just going to add r by 1. So if r is 10, it's just going to do r plus 1. So 10 plus 1 is 11. So the new value of r is 11. So I'm printing my variable out again, and what I wanted it to do is to be a different output since I changed r to 11. So if I'm using r here, the answer is actually supposed to be different because I've changed the values, and r is involved in this variable, so the output should be different. But if I print it out, the output's just going to be the same. So we need to calculate the area of a circle again, and then we'll see the new result. So we have to print the variable out again in order to see the new result. I can demonstrate this in the Python shell. So I can do pi is equal to 22 over 7, and then I can do r is equal to 10. And then I can make a new variable called area of a circle, and that is equal to pi times r, and then we can print our new variable out. So it's going to be 314, and then there's just going to be a lot of decimal places. But this is actually not the real one, as that it's supposed to go on forever. But I guess Python has a limit to its decimal places and numbers. So I want to change my output when I print the same variable. So what I can do is reassign r, and I can try to print my variable out again. So you see it's going to be the same. So we have to reassign it again. So we have to type the whole thing again. So now that I've typed the whole thing out again, I can print it. And I've just realized, why am I typing print? That could have saved me some time, but that's okay. The value is going to change. That's because I reassigned R to 11. So there's actually a lot of rules for variables. In this do's and don'ts slide, I've practically told the rules of variables. So it's just do's and don'ts for using variables, basically. I'm just going to explain all this writing briefly. So you can only use letters, numbers, and underscores in your variable's name. So the value doesn't actually have to be only letters, numbers, and underscores. It's just only for the name. So don't get confused about that. And your variable can't start with a number. I don't know why, but that's just the rule, I guess. Here are some examples of valid variables. I guess I can just say that. So country 1 is equal to England, underscore city is equal to London, building underscore 2 is equal to home, score is equal to 90.0, age is equal to 22. Obviously, I'm not 22. And then game running is equal to true. So there can be a whole lot of values. So don't include any special characters in your variables, including spaces, a hashtag sign or commenting sign, I guess you can say, a $sign and @sign. Lowercase letters and uppercase letters will be treated as different variables. For example, greeting with its first letter being a capital G, greeting in all lowercase, and greeting in mixed lowercase and uppercase are all considered as different variables. So this is the rule many people get confused about. And keep your variable's name sensible. This should be just enough to tell you what that variable is. So for example, name is equal to rf. So this is a very simple and straightforward variable, and you want variables like that so you can just know what its purpose is. And also don't include any keywords in your variables such as and, or, if, for, while, and even more. And then the star says you don't need to add any speech marks or quotes on your variables. But what if we wanted to write a message with the variable's name? Then we can either use a comma or concatenation. So the first one says hobby is equal to painting. So this is just my variable I made. And then we can print a message with our variable. So we can just type print, open our brackets, and then we can type a string. And then we have to do a comma and then just type the variable's name. So I didn't write the output, but you can guess what is going to be the output. And then here's another one. So favorite subject is equal to maths, and that is actually my favorite subject. So we can do print. I'm really excited to do comma favorite subject. So if you want to continue your message, you can just put a comma after the variable and then you can finish your message off. Because there's an apostrophe here, Python will get confused whether it's a quote or not, because you can either use double quotes or single quotes for strings. So I just use a double quote here. So comma adds a default space for you, so you don't have to worry about spacing. So let's try this out in the shell. So it's hobby is equal to painting. And then we can type print, I like to do, then a comma, and then we type our variable's name, which is hobby. So now I'm going to reveal the output. So it's going to say, I like to do painting. So it's going to print, I like to do, and then the variable's name, which is painting. And also a comma adds a default space for you. But the next slide I'm going to show you is concatenation, and that will not. So we can try our other examples. So favorite underscore subject is equal to maths. So we type print, use an apostrophe. So I'm really excited to do, comma, favorite subject, so our variable's name again, today, and we can put an exclamation mark. So if we press enter, it's going to say, I'm really excited to do maths today. So it's going to say the first string, which is I'm really excited to do, and then our variable's name, which is Matt, and then our final string, which is today. So obviously we can just do this, so we can just type I'm really excited to do maths today. So if we do this, so if we just type the whole thing as a string, it will just do the same thing. But the reason why I'm using the variable and not in this particular one is that we can make it print a different thing each time we press enter or run the code when we're in the editor. But I'm just using this as an example, so it's good to practice this way, as later we'll use this more. So we can print variables with a message or text using a plus, which is a concatenation operator. So concatenation basically just means adding strings and variables, or maybe even other things, together. So we just use a plus sign to add these things together. So for this example, I'm using name is equal to r again, because I can't really think of another variable. So we're going to use print hello, and then we're going to type a plus sign, which is just a concatenation operator. And then we type the variable's name here, which is just name. And then we do a plus sign again. And then we do another string saying, how's your day been going? So you can guess what the output would be, but I'm not going to reveal it until I try it out. So the plus operator doesn't add a space in your text on its own, so the output has no spaces. So let's try it out in the idle shell. So we can just type name is equal to r of, and then we can type print, and then again I'm going to use double quotes as we're going to use an apostrophe. So I can type hello, comma, and then we can finish this quote off. And then we can type a plus sign, and then we can type a variable's name, which is just name, and then another plus sign, and then we can finish our string off. So I'm going to press enter. So it's going to say, hello, Arav, how's your day been going? You see there's not going to be a space before the A and the H, but for this one there is a comma. That's just because I use commas in my strings. So there's a difference between using a comma and a concatenation operator, but you can use either one. So here is some other cool stuff you can do with variables. So we can make a variable called pounds, and then we assign it to 144. So we can do pounds is equal to 144, and then dollars is equal to 200. So we can print pounds plus dollars. So it's just going to add these two values together. And then we can do age is equal to 11, and then we can reassign our variable and do age is equal to age times 3, and then we can print our new age. So I'm going to try this out again in the Python shell. So I can type pounds is equal to 144, and then I can do dollars is equal to 200. And then we can do pounds plus dollars. And I keep forgetting this, but we're in the shell, so we don't need to use print. So 200 plus 144 is equal to 344. And then we can do age is equal to 11. And then we can reassign our variable to 11 times 3. And then we can print our variable by just typing our variable because it's the shell again. And you see the output is going to be 33 because we originally assigned it to 11, but we reassigned it to 11 times 3. And 11 times 3 is 33, so it's actually just going to do the calculation. It's not just going to say 11 times 3 when we want to print out our variable. It's just going to do the calculation. So instead of declaring 3 variables on 3 different lines, I can do it on 1 line. On the second line, I'm just printing it out, so it doesn't really count as a line for assigning my variable. So this technique is called multiple assignments. So these are the 3 things I want to assign. So doctor is the occupation. So you see I've matched its color with its value. So the first variable we put here is going to be the first value, which is doctor. And then salary per month is equal to 5,000, and I mean in pounds. And then age is equal to 46. So we can print our variable out, and then you can guess what the output is going to be. So we can type occupation, and we use a comma to separate our variables' names, and then we can type salary per month, and then we do another comma, and then we type age, and then the first value is going to be assigned to doctor, and then we use a comma again. The second variable is going to be assigned to 5,000, then we do another comma, and then the third and final variable is going to be assigned to 46. So we can just type our variables' names to print them out in the shell. And also, again, we use commas to separate our variables' names out. So if we print it out, there's going to be brackets, and then it's going to say all our variables' values. So it's going to say doctor in quotes because it's a string, obviously, and then a comma, 5,000, and then another comma, and then 46, and then it's going to end the bracket. So that's how it's going to print out when you do multiple assignments.